You know Saul, right? That guy that wrote a lot of books in the New Testament, and everybody calls him one of the greatest apostles of all times. What if I tell you that what you know about him might not be who he actually is? I mean, well, we all know he was a Roman, he was a Jew. I mean, how can one man be a Roman and a Jew at the same time? We know he traveled out a lot, we know he persecuted the church. But on this video, I'm going to focus on a lot of things that we don't know about Paul, well, most of us, and I'm talking to you specifically. And I'm going to focus on things like what Luke said about him, what he said about himself, and what the Corinthians church said about him. And actually, that's the main reason for this video, so wait for that one. So first of all, was he a Jew or a Roman? Actually, he was both. He was a Jew and legally a Roman citizen, which is very rare. He was a Jew under the Hebrew, and he calls himself the Hebrew of Hebrews in Philippians 3 verse 5. And he was also taught under Gamaliel in Acts chapter 22 verse 3. And his Hebrew name is Saul. Actually, it's pronounced Shaul. I'm not sure I got it right, but it's actually after the first king of Israel, Saul, King Saul. Then for his Roman identity, we know he was given birth to in Tarsus, according to Acts 22:28, and that is actually what we call Turkey. So in a way, he actually had his Latin name Paul, which means small or humble, and yeah, he just had that from his parents, probably from something they've done to get it in one of his generations. So legally, he used that right to protect himself from torture in Acts 16:37, Acts 22:25, and his right to appeal in Acts 25 to 20, in verse 11, where he appealed to Caesar. But I want us to focus on what people say about him and what he says about himself. So first of all, let's see what people say about him. So for John, for James, and for Peter, they look at him as someone, that was a very interesting person whom the Holy Spirit was with. So they gave him the right hand to fellowship, which is according to Galatians chapter 2, to preach to the Gentiles. Why their relation was somehow tense though. And remember that incident at Antioch where Paul publicly rebuked Peter for withdrawing from eating with non-Jewish Christians under pressure from conservative Jewish Christians. So yeah, that was kind of like a very notable one where someone like Paul stood up against Peter. At that time, it was a big deal. Now, to his own congregation, well, I'm saving it for the last, but let's just take it early on. They took him as his letters are weighty, but in person, he is unimpressive and his speaking amounts to nothing. According to 2 Corinthians 10, which is the whole point why I made this video, to look at it that, okay, so this guy wrote a lot, and according to 2 Corinthians 10, they say his letters are weighty and forceful, but in person, he's just unimpressive and his speaks amounts to nothing. But actually, according to his Jewish Christians, let's call them Judaizers, Judaizers, they viewed him with deep suspicion, arguing that he was undermining God's covenants by telling Gentiles convert that they did not need to observe circumcision or kosher and dietary laws. So non-Christians actually saw him as an apostate and a dangerous agitator who was fracturing synagogue communities across the Mediterranean. And as for the Roman authorities, all they just saw him is as a public nuisance and a disturber of civic peace. In Acts 24 verse 5, the Jewish lawyer Tertullus describes Paul to the Roman governor Felix as a pestilence and agitator among all the Jews throughout the world. And how does this guy look physically? I don't know, maybe in your imagination you had a board, okay, maybe just someone that is there and looks very energetic. But actually the Bible never describes Paul physically, but an early non-canonical text, let's say around 160 AD, which is the Acts of Paul, and the I don't know how to pronounce his name, but it's Thecle. So they actually have one of the earliest description we can have of him, and he's a man small of size, bald-headed, bandy-legged, well-built, with eyebrows meeting and a rather large nose full of grace. That's a very funny way to describe a person, but anyway, now you get the idea. So according to our early church fathers, he was, let's say, a true apostle. According to Marcion in 140 AD, he rejected the Old Testament entirely. So according to the canonical Paul, that is the canonical Paul view by the church fathers, in response to Marcion, church fathers like Irenaeus and Tellurian reclaimed Paul, insisting that his letter must be read alongside the four Gospels and the Old Testament. So leaders like Clement of Rome, Ignatius, Polycarp venerated Paul as a martyr and a pillar of faith, while Saint Augustine, leaned heavily on Paul's letter to the Romans to formulate foundational Western Christian doctrine of faith, original sin, and civic election. So we look at him today as this person that pioneers, how do you pronounce it? Pioneers the new faiths. So yeah, and there are a lot of things people bring up about Paul, like for example him saying things like women shouldn't teach in church. Yeah, I don't know if you want me to go into that, maybe drop it in the comment section. I'd love to talk about it, but for now this is just what I want to say about Paul. 7 minutes of rapping about Paul, well, that's something good. So if you'd like to see more about his teachings, like women teaching in church and other things, please tell me in the comment section.